It was supposed to be a shortcut. The map showed a thin, winding road that cut through the forest, a hidden passage that would save Mark and his friends nearly an hour on their road trip. "I don't know," Emily said from the back seat, staring out at the growing darkness. "It's not even on Google Maps." "That's because it's an old highway," Ryan, the self-proclaimed navigator of the group, insisted. "See? It's right here on the old state maps. Probably just not updated online." Mark, the driver, shrugged. "All right, if it gets us there faster." He took the turn onto the narrow road. As soon as the tires hit the asphalt, something felt wrong. The road was oddly smooth, not cracked, not worn, just a perfect stretch of black, unmarked pavement. There were no signs, no mile markers, no indication that it had ever been used. The trees pressed in tightly on both sides, their gnarled branches reaching toward the road like clawing fingers. The headlights cut through the thickening fog, but beyond that, the night seemed impossibly dark. "Where are the houses? The street lights?" Emily whispered. "Guess no one comes out here anymore," Mark muttered, gripping the wheel a little tighter. The road stretched endlessly ahead, winding deeper into the forest. The farther they drove, the quieter everything became. Even the sound of the tires on the pavement felt muffled. A strange pressure settled over them, like they had driven into a place where the world didn't quite exist. Minutes passed, then an hour, then two. Ryan frowned at the GPS. "This isn't right." "What do you mean?" Mark asked, his voice tense. Ryan turned the phone toward them. The GPS screen was frozen, the little blue dot blinking in place. "It's been like this for the last 20 minutes, Ryan admitted. "It's like we're not moving." Mark's hands tightened on the wheel. "We have to be moving." I don't know, man," Ryan whispered. "This road doesn't make sense." Emily let out a small gasp. "Guys, look." She pointed ahead. A sign stood in the distance, barely visible in the fog. As they neared it, the words became clearer, painted in old faded letters. "Welcome to Greyhaven." The town name sent a chill through Mark's bones. "Greyhaven," he muttered. "I've never heard of it." Ryan was frantically searching his phone. "There's nothing online, no town called Greyhaven." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "Then, what is this place?" The sign wasn't the only thing up ahead. Just beyond it, the road opened into a small town square. Old-fashioned buildings lined the streets, dimly lit by flickering yellow lamps. A diner, a post office, a gas station, all frozen in time. And people stood on the sidewalks, but they weren't moving. Mark's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the figures standing perfectly still, their faces turned toward the road. Their clothes were outdated, like something from the 1950s, and their eyes were empty. A deep, primal terror gripped Mark's chest. "I'm turning around," he said, spinning the wheel. The tires screeched as the car made a sharp U-turn. He pressed the gas, speeding back the way they came. The road stretched endlessly before them, the town disappearing into the mist behind them. For the first time that night, Mark felt relief, until Emily's voice cut through the silence. "Mark," she whispered. He didn't want to look, but he did. His stomach dropped. The Greyhaven sign was ahead of them again. They had never left. Mark's hands shook on the wheel. No, that's impossible." Ryan was hyperventilating in the passenger seat. "We just left. How are we back here?" Emily pointed again. The people on the sidewalks were closer now. They were still unmoving, their hollow eyes watching, their mouths slightly open, as if trying to whisper something. Mark hit the gas again. He sped past the sign, past the town, into the thick, endless darkness of the road. The silence grew louder. The fog thickened. Then something appeared in the middle of the road. A figure, a man standing completely still, his face obscured by the mist. Mark swerved, barely missing him. The car skidded to a stop, and when they looked back, the man was right beside the car. His face was gray and cracked, like old, dried skin stretched over bone. His mouth hung open, his jaw unhinged too wide, revealing a hollow, bottomless darkness. And then he screamed. A deafening, unnatural wail filled the air, shaking the car, rattling their bones. The fog rushed in. The road vanished beneath them. Everything went black. Mark woke up behind the wheel, his head slumped against the window. The sun was rising, casting golden light over the forest. He gasped, looking around frantically. Ryan and Emily were still in the car, stirring awake, alive. The road stretched ahead, normal again. Cracked asphalt, birds chirping in the distance. No more fog. No more gray haven. Was that a dream? Ryan whispered. Emily's hands were shaking. No, she said. It wasn't. Mark looked at the GPS. It was working again. The blue dot showed them miles away from any town, deep in the wilderness. He exhaled shakily and started driving, desperate to leave. But as they pulled onto the highway, Emily let out a quiet, trembling gasp. She was staring at something in the side mirror. Mark followed her gaze. On the edge of the forest, barely visible between the trees, a faded road sign stood tall in the morning light. It read, "Welcome to Greyhaven," and beneath it, scratched into the wood, "You never really leave." The sign appeared out of nowhere. Mark had been driving for hours, his eyes dry and heavy, the empty highway stretching on endlessly. His gas gauge was dipping dangerously low, and his stomach grumbled. He needed a break. That's when he saw it, a rusted old sign on the side of the road, barely standing upright. "Rest stop, 2 miles ahead." Mark frowned. He had driven this stretch of highway before, and he didn't remember a rest stop anywhere nearby. But exhaustion clouded his judgment. He needed gas. He needed food. He needed a place to stretch his legs before he passed out behind the wheel. So, when the next sign appeared, "Rest stop, next right," Mark turned without a second thought. The road leading to the rest stop was strangely narrow, overgrown with weeds, the pavement cracked and worn. His headlights barely cut through the creeping fog that settled over the trees. A bad feeling curled in his gut, but then he saw it. A small gas station, flickering neon letters buzzing against the night. Beside it stood a diner, its yellow sign reading, "Betty's Diner, open 24 hours." A sigh of relief escaped his lips. Finally, Mark pulled into the lot, turning off the engine. The place was dead silent. No other cars, no sounds except the faint rustle of trees in the wind. Still, he got out, stretching his aching limbs. His skin prickled with unease. The air felt wrong. But he pushed the feeling aside and headed toward the diner. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. The place looked straight out of the 1950s. Checkered floor, red vinyl booths, a long counter with spinning bar stools. The walls were lined with black and white photos, portraits of smiling people frozen in time. And behind the counter stood a woman. She wore a faded pink waitress uniform, her name tag reading Betty. Her smile was too wide. "Well, hello there, traveler," she chirped, her voice too smooth, too practiced. "We don't get many visitors this time of night." Mark forced a chuckle. "Yeah, I was just passing through, saw the sign for the rest stop. Thought I'd grab a bite." Betty's eyes gleamed. Of course, of course. Have a seat. I'll fix you up something real nice." Mark slid into a booth. The vinyl was ice cold. As he waited, he glanced around. The diner was spotless, too clean, like no one had actually used it in years. And the photos on the walls. His stomach twisted. The people in them weren't just smiling. Their expressions were frozen in something that looked almost like fear. A clatter startled him. Betty had set down a plate of food, a burger, fries, and a thick chocolate milkshake. His gut told him not to eat it, but he was starving. He picked up the burger, took a bite. Rotten meat. He gagged, spitting it out. The taste was putrid, like something long dead and decayed. Betty just stood there, watching, still smiling. "You don't like my cooking?" she asked, her voice eerily calm. Mark wiped his mouth. I think I lost my appetite." She didn't blink. The diner felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. Then, in the corner of his eye, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The photos on the wall. They had changed. The frozen people were now looking at him, their eyes wide, their mouths twisted in silent screams. Mark shot up from his seat. "I should go." Betty's smile never faltered. "But dear," she cooed, "you just got here." The lights flickered, and in the reflection of the diner's windows, he saw them. Figures, shadowy, distorted people, pressed against the glass, their hands scraping the surface, their faces contorted in agony. Mark's pulse pounded. Screw this. He turned and bolted for the door, shoving it open so hard the bell snapped off. Outside, the gas station was gone. The fog was thicker now, swallowing everything except the diner. The road he had driven in on was no longer there. His car, gone. His chest tightened in terror. "No, no, no." Betty had followed him outside. "You can't leave," she said sweetly. The ground rumbled beneath him. The air grew heavy. Mark turned, and the diner was changing. The neon lights flickered wildly, the walls cracking, the black and white photos peeling away to reveal something underneath. Rotting flesh, gaping mouths, endless screaming faces. The figures pressed closer. Dozens of them. Hundreds. He tried to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Betty's voice echoed, distorted and warped. "Welcome to the rest stop, honey." The fog consumed him. The last thing he heard before everything went black was screaming. The next night, a dark highway, a rusted old sign. "Rest stop 2 miles ahead." Another traveler drives by, tired, hungry. They turn down the road. The rest stop waits, and it is always hungry. For decades, Highway 666 remained an enigma. Countless vehicles vanished, leaving no trace. Truckers spoke in hushed tones about eerie figures glimpsed in the fog, strange radio transmissions, and headlights that never seemed to belong to any car. A deadly shortcut. Jason, a long-haul trucker, had heard the rumors but never believed them. One night, in a desperate attempt to meet a deadline, he chose to take the infamous highway as a shortcut. The sky was moonless, the air thick with an unnatural stillness. As soon as he turned onto the road, the radio crackled with static before a whispering voice emerged. "You shouldn't be here." Jason froze. He scanned the empty road, his fingers gripping the steering wheel tighter. The headlights illuminated the cracked asphalt, but the darkness beyond seemed impenetrable. The man without a face. A shadow flickered in his peripheral vision. A man stood on the roadside, his face hidden beneath the brim of an old hat. As Jason's truck passed, the figure turned its head. Only there was no face. A cold wave of dread washed over him. His foot pressed harder on the gas. The truck rumbled forward, but the road seemed to stretch endlessly. The odometer was frozen. The trees on either side of the highway began to shift, twisting unnaturally as if they were watching him. The pursuit begins. Then, in his mirrors, he saw it. A pair of headlights appeared behind him, too bright, too fast. The vehicle, if there even was one, was gaining on him at an impossible speed. Jason's heart pounded as he slammed the pedal to the floor, but the headlights only drew closer, blinding him. His radio crackled again, the same whispering voice returning, louder this time. "You can't escape." Jason yanked the wheel, veering off the road, but the moment his tires left the pavement, the truck skidded into an abyss of nothingness. He was weightless, suspended in blackness. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the faceless man, standing right in front of his windshield, the phantom town. When Jason woke up, he was no longer in his truck. He stood in the middle of an unfamiliar road, surrounded by thick fog. The air smelled of damp earth and rusted metal. Ahead, dim street lights flickered, revealing a small, desolate town with boarded-up shops and empty houses. The town had no signs, no people, only an eerie silence. Jason stepped forward cautiously. His boots echoed against the pavement. As he passed by an old diner, a neon open sign flickered weakly, though the windows were covered in grime. He pushed open the door, the bell above it jingling hollowly. Inside, everything was frozen in time. Plates of half-eaten food sat on tables, coffee still steaming in cups. A newspaper lay on the counter, dated November 13th, 1956. Jason's breath hitched. He wasn't even born yet. A radio behind the counter crackled to life. The same whispering voice slithered through the speakers. "Welcome home." The endless nightmare. Jason ran back outside, heart hammering. He sprinted toward the edge of town, hoping to find his truck. But the road looped back into the center of town, no matter which direction he took. He was trapped. Then he saw them. Figures moving in the fog, shadowy outlines of people. Their features were distorted, faces stretched in silent screams. Some had hollow eyes like the faceless man. Others reached out with skeletal hands, their fingers inches from Jason's skin. A horn blared in the distance. Jason whirled around and saw a massive truck barreling toward him, its headlights blinding. He dove out of the way, hitting the pavement hard. When he looked up, he was back in his truck. His radio crackled once more. "Drive!" Jason didn't hesitate. He slammed his foot on the gas and tore down the highway. The faceless man appeared in the rearview mirror, standing in the road, watching him disappear into the night. Lost forever. The next morning, his truck was found idling on an abandoned stretch of road, empty. The doors were locked from the inside, the headlights still on. There was no sign of Jason. His last radio transmission, picked up by a fellow trucker, was a final, desperate plea. "If anyone can hear me, don't take Highway 666. It's not a road. It's a trap." Some say Jason is still out there, caught between the endless loops of that phantom highway. Others claim to have heard his voice over their radios late at night, whispering warnings. But one thing is certain: those who ignore the warnings never return.